and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is Dave Warburton. As ever, I am joined by my industry colleagues, Mr. Ian Storey and James Kendall. Lads, how has your week been? I went to you last week, Ian, so this week I'm going to go to you, JK.
Actually, you went to me first last week.
Yeah.
So.
No. Second choice now, I know that.
These intros get worse every week. But
so the week has been productive, chaps. Given all the doom and gloom everywhere, there are sales, there are listings happening. So we have listed 6 since the last podcast, ranging from 475 to 1.35. Matt got a really good one yesterday at 1.35. I think they're all 2%. So crackers, 475, 550, 650, 800, a million and 1.35. 2 definite sales agreed, so proceedable buyer sales agreed, one at 625, one at 985. Both went on 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks later, sold. They were priced right. They were priced correctly, lads. Can you believe it? And they sold. There's loads of buyers on both of those. We had loads of viewings on both. We've then had, since the last podcast, 7 offers on another 7 houses in the last week. You know, varying range of prices from 575 to 1.2. All the gold dust element of the market. And as of last week, we target the team. We want 10 valuations a week booking. I think we booked 9 last week. We booked something like 7 so far this week, 6 or 7. So good. I had our Monday morning meeting with the team was focusing on making sure we're getting these valuations booked, because it's slipped. The focus has slipped because we just haven't had to, think about it, because we've had loads booked in throughout the year. But I want to make sure they're on that, so that I say to them, look, Wednesday comes, how many have we booked? Do we need to be calling through some buyers that are on the books that haven't sold with other agents? So I need to make sure there's a focus on that. Door knocking if not. So really, I would say things are pretty good shape, considering it's November and 2 weeks yesterday is the budget. JK.
Yeah, good. It's been quieter. I'm not going to sit here and tell porcupines to make myself look good, but we've got 2 agreed in the last week at the 700-ish mark. One at 7, one at 750. Nice 750 at 2% is always nice, isn't it? I always sort of refer to those as the gold dust between sort of 500 and a mil. So you can keep that phrase there.
I like that.
We've had some really great challenges. Maybe we'll go into a bit deeper on the pod when we start talking about progression. But there's been some real challenges and progression in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Now, we've talked about fickle buyers and how buyers have been, but renegs on surveys, people changing their minds. We were involved in one chain, would you believe it, where we've got 2 properties in the chain. At 1.25 and 1.75, and the bottom of the chain has just fallen out because the agent didn't qualify the buyer properly, and they made an offer on a house with a $5,000 deposit, and then the mortgage company said they wouldn't lend. So we got all the way down to exchange, and then it was like, oh no, they pulled the offer because there isn't enough deposit, which was a challenge. Anyway, luckily, because we're dealing at this end of the market, the people in the chain have got a substantial amount of money to just complete the purchase anyway. So our 2 links now are thankfully going to be saved. We're going to exchange on those tomorrow. So there's 3 million quid's worth that should exchange in the next 24 hours. Both really good sales for Rich. I can't say I can't take the credit for those. Yes, I've been involved, but they are Richard sales. Which is really nice. But yeah, there have been challenges. We've got a couple of renegs on surveys we're dealing with. We've had people pulling out for all sorts of different reasons. One thing I would say to anyone that is listening, because I've spoken to quite a few agents. I seem to speak to agents every week, actually, either through LinkedIn or Messenger or Facebook Messenger or even on the phone. And I think a lot of people are feeling beaten up at the moment and a little bit worried about the budget. The market sort of batters and bruises them. You said the other week, Dave, that nothing really excites you anymore when you agree something because you're kind of waiting for it to fall through. I think there's a lot of that in the industry. I was talking to another local agent who I'm good friends with the other day, and he was saying the same thing. You don't really get the buzz because you're never really sure whether it's going to go through or not. The other thing as well, it has been quieter. Addressing the elephant in the room, it has been quieter. If you haven't got a lead generation strategy in place, it is going to be naturally quieter. We are down on vals booked this month. We've only booked 11 so far this month, which is still just under one a day, which isn't bad by any stretch. But when you think when we are firing, we're generally doing at least 1.3 a day on average, generally 40-ish a month, roughly. So yeah, all letters are out. We actually got, obviously we all met up yesterday, didn't we, for a bit of a natter. But while I was out, the team had a big day on the market letters. So we just sent a wave of 200 out the week before. We got another 320 something out yesterday as well. So they'll start to land in and around in the next sort of 3 to 4 days, and we will start to reap the rewards. I know a couple of the members have had some really good results recently from some of the letters that have gone out, and they are landing really well. If you think a lot of the agents aren't communicating with their clients, aren't articulating the market to them, so having something informative landing through their door, telling them what the market's doing and what could lay on the road ahead, could land quite well, and as such has done really well. So good week, I guess. Challenging like it is for everyone at the moment. David?
Yes, probably somewhere in the middle. It is still quiet, and I keep saying it's quality over quantity, because the stuff that I am going to is actually really strong. So some really good valuations. I think we were discussing with the members in the WhatsApp group briefly, with a few of them anyway, and that seems to be the feel. And I think it might have been Kirsty actually said something like, it feels like it's decision-making time for a lot of people. I think as the budget approaches, people are starting to think, right, we need to start getting real now. And that's what I'm feeling in a lot of my valuations. I think the sentiment's correct, Ian, with what you're saying. If a house is well priced and it's well marketed, there are plenty of buyers out there. It's about understanding what the new price is in this new emerging market, and who knows where it'll go after the budget.
Would you say the market's got kind of a recession feel to it, Dave?
Yes, I would actually, James. I think it has got a bit of a recession feel to it, and I'll be using that. Thanks. But anyway, yes, it's still, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but I do feel like the stuff that I'm going to is very serious about moving, and they just want honest advice. And we will be listing houses between now and the end of the year, because I think if people need to sell in a certain time frame, there's no point hanging around. You just need to get it on the market, don't you, and see what happens. But I think where people have got flexibility and the classic, we're not in a rush, or whatever it might be, there is an argument to be had, isn't there? We've talked this to death in the last few weeks, so I won't go into it too much, but that's just the feeling in the market that, you might wait till after the budget, and then of course it's December and Christmas time, and is there any point going on the market in December when it's quiet? And I know that some agents will panic with that kind of mindset, because ultimately it does put you back a little bit. If the house is not on the market, it can't sell, unless you're obviously doing a lot of off-market activity and you've got buyers waiting, things like that. So we've got quite a few houses ready to go that we will be holding back and doing a lot of pre-launch strategy on, and off-market strategy on, with full launch if we don't manage to sell them in that respect, probably between Christmas and New Year, or in the New Year. So lots going on there. I'm just looking at Burton James here. So four instructions, couple of offers this week. No sales. It's like 2 weeks without sales on Burton James. Again, like you, JK, not dressing it up. There's not been any sales for a couple of weeks. There is activity and offers, which is good. But again, it's navigating the offers and getting them to a position whereby they are saleable and acceptable. And then on We Locate, which is obviously our lower end of the market, 3 instructions, couple of sales, couple of offers. So there's still movement everywhere, lads. Same thing. That recession feel that we know that's now become famous and that we talk about is when it was 2007-8, houses just weren't selling. But because people could not borrow money, or lots of people couldn't borrow money, you needed 40%, 50% overnight. Some banks weren't even lending, and the sentiment in the market was one of, it's too risky and people were losing the houses. It was an awful time. So we're not for 1 minute saying that is where we're at now, because people can borrow, and borrowing historically is cheap. I think
Well, the swap
Gatesy
rates
came
are
up with
coming
that.
down as well. I don't know if you've seen the graph of the swap rates, but if you look at where they were in, I think it's the LIBOR rate or something like that, the rate that obviously banks lend money from the BOE or whatever. From 2024, I think they were lending at 3.9, and I think as of last week it was something like 3.2.
Yeah,
There's 0.5% of interest between the two. Obviously, that's not the bank base rate, but that bank base rate doesn't really matter too much. It's actually what the banks are borrowing the money at to then lend it to you.
yeah. It's interesting to know. And I was just about to say, I think Gatesy came up with a stat a while ago. Gatesy, you will listen to this on your dog walk, so when you get this, make sure you post the stat somewhere on your stories or something. But I'm sure he said something like the 300-year average was above 5% for the base rate. You're well above. So historically, rates are cheap. And once again, lads, it comes down to how this is positioned to your clients. The Tom Panos, I don't know whose phrase it originally was, but Tom Panos is the where I got it from. But he always says, you date the interest rate and you marry the house, don't you? You don't put off buying a house based on interest rates, essentially. So
I don't know if you've seen, sorry mate, just as well, there's a few things. Obviously, this isn't mortgage advice. Your home may be repossessed if you don't keep up your mortgage repayments. So then I have to say that before I say what I'm about to say. But have you seen that there's I think Ian Macbeth actually posted it on Facebook or LinkedIn the other day, that HSBC Premier customers can borrow at 6.5 times their income.
Right.
At 90% loan to value.
Wow.
Which is massive.
How we got into this mess in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's a sign of obviously lenders' criteria easing, because they're obviously feeling the stretch. They want to make money. Banks are in this to make money, and they're pushing obviously the boundaries of what they can lend, because obviously stress testing was relaxed a little while back, wasn't it? In various cases, and I just think pushing it out a little bit more, you're seeing some more affordability in that 90% loan to value space, which is why I think we're seeing a bit more in the 500, 600, 700 space now that maybe we weren't sort of seeing 3-4 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. Ultimately, things are still moving. The problem we've got at the moment, I think, it's just the fact that the market is in this transitional period, and we don't know where it's going to finish, and it just causes mass uncertainty. And I think the main challenges that we're having are the ones that everybody is having, which is, you do have slow moving stock, you do have fickle buyers, you have unrealistic vendors. But in fairness to a lot of homeowners, they don't know. They get told by their agents and stuff like that, and they go on at a certain price, and their house doesn't sell, and then they don't get communicated with. And it is hard to take. I think I made the point a few weeks ago. A lot of the houses that perhaps we have sticking, if you were going out fresh right now and looking at historical land registry data and stuff, and you didn't know anything about the house, you wouldn't necessarily be changing the price, because factually, the latest land registry data and price per square foot and all that, all the information available to you will still read a very similar story. And that's what I'm saying to my homeowners. The reality is we're just in a new market that we don't know where that will end and how people will receive your house. So you have to be very competitive with your pricing, and being on that price banding below, as JK has said, I think is one of your best moves. And I've had a few conversations like that this week, and but there was one that sticks out where I did a bit of a conference call with two brothers who were selling the mother's house, who's gone into a home, and a bit older and struggling to get their head around the offers over and why would people pay more and stuff like that. So you've really got to show them test cases of where it works really, really well. And I would always come back to, well, John, if it's not selling at offers over 700, it was never going to sell at 750 or 800, which is what you're asking. So just trust me.
Can I just jump in with, because before we came on the call, I had a conversation with a client, didn't I?
You did, and you put it on speaker, and it was impressive, by the way.
Yeah, so it was on speakerphone, so you two could hear it. Obviously, I won't mention any names or addresses and stuff on the podcast, but I think it's quite an interesting point, because in the last week, last 2 weeks, Phil has agreed 2 sales to non-proceedable buyers, and we have
What?
taken on
Non-proceedable buyers? You're mad. Why would anyone sell to a non-proceedable buyer?
So they're both over $1 million. Okay, so they're both bit harder to sell. They've both been on the market a reasonable amount of time. They've both got good houses to sell, the buyers. So we've agreed one where we've listed the buyer's house very quickly in the 900 and it's had viewings already. That should go. They will then buy the one that's over $1 million with us. And I had a good, interesting conversation this morning with a client, and you two overheard it. And my client is just, she's just absolutely delightful. But she's lived there an awful long time, and she needs to sell. So it's been on the market a good while now, and it's had very, very limited interest, this house. So we, at the very, very start, before we put it on the market, we had someone offer the asking price, the marketing price, and said to us, would you give us time to sell ours? I said to the seller, it's worth a go, because I know we've got a bit of a niche house to sell, so it's worth a go. So we gave that a go. These people didn't sell their house for 4 weeks, but their house was 1.4 million and relatively small garden, maybe not the easiest to sell. So fast forward 6 months, we've got these other people who I've been to this week, and these other people have got a 500 grand barn conversion. It's lovely. You can never say this, can you? But it's the sort of house that should just sell $500,000.
I've just down that road, selling a week.
Loads of buyers. It's characterful. It's got 5 double bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, big south-facing garden. It's lovely. So I said to the seller, look, I really think we should take it off the market for them. Give them 7 weeks to sell theirs. Worst case, they don't, and yours goes back on the market at the start of January, busiest time of the year. Plus, it's quieter now anyway. 2 weeks, it's the budget. You've then got 4 weeks of Christmas. It's probably the best time of year that you could take it off and give this a go. And she's really, really nervy about taking it off the market. And I've said to her today that it's not had any viewings for 3 months, this house, up until these people viewing it this week. And yes, it probably is worth what we're asking for it, but it's a special type of buyer that sees the value in it. So basically, she's to and fro with her family, and I'm going to arrange a call with her son because, I've got a good relationship with him, and obviously she relies on him for advice. And I really think it's good, sound advice that I've given her. And the worst case is she relaunches it in January at a new date. So hopefully they'll take my advice. But we are doing a lot of that at the minute, a lot of deal making, especially at the higher end. You've not got loads of buyers around. And if it's a bit more of a niche property and it's a highly priced home and you've got someone who's super keen to try and buy it and they've got a lower priced home, we're doing a lot more deal making currently. And I think agents really need to be honest with sellers about getting people into view that can't proceed. I went to another one this week and they said, I can't think which house it was, and they said, well, we don't want people that can't proceed viewing, do we? And I said, well, you do actually, John. You definitely do, because they might be your perfect buyer and we're not awash with loads of proceedable buyers. The two that I mentioned at the start of the pod that we've sold, we were, because they were 600 and 900. And there are plenty of buyers at that level if the price is right. But you get to the higher end, they're a bit more niche. There's not. So I think people definitely need to be thinking about deal making and being honest with clients. And like you said, Dave, I was very frank but polite with that seller that she's not had any viewings for 3 months. So, they need to think that if you've got someone there that's going to pay a fair price, and the price they've offered isn't wildly over, I think it's just a fair price for all parties. You need to keep those people locked in and engaged, because that's the kind of market that we're in.
You are right. You've got to build chains.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I mean, at this level as well, sort of mid to high end, you're quite right. A lot of people, they haven't done anything with their own house when they start off because they don't know. It's still frightening to me that people will ring you up and say, hi, can I go and see your barn conversion and on Sunday at 3:00, please? They'll say, yeah, of course, let's take all your details and get you registered, and what is it you like about the barn? You get all the details. And right, have you got a property to sell? Yeah. Have you had any valuations on that yet? No. Do you need to sell it to buy? Oh, yeah, we need to sell it to buy. Do you need finances? Yeah, we're going to need to borrow probably 50%. We've got 50%. Great, okay. Have you had any mortgage advice yet? No. And you're like, right. And naturally, as a seller, you if you gave all that information, you'd be like, what is the point? I'm going to tidy my house, get everything ready. The kids will go out, we'll leave it for you, and then they can't move.
Dave, in our marketing plan, we have a page, and I've listed all the houses that we sold in the last 18 months where the viewers weren't on the market when they viewed.
Yeah, I love that.
I write the list. There's a list of them, and they range between like 800 and 2 million, say. And I put the address, and I say to people, these people might not have sold if they'd not let that non-proceedable buyer view.
100%. It's true. I've got about 3 or 4 of those that I can reel off the tongue when I'm in evaluation, and you've just got to say, you've got to trust me, and really sort of let the process play out, because it is an educational process. A lot of these people don't get it, and equally with the buyers, a lot of the time they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense what you're saying to me now, get my house market ready.
Yeah.
So they don't get it, but
no,
and getting these grace periods, it's golden. It's golden because it is sort of a win-win for the seller, because
the seller that I'm talking about can't find anywhere to buy. So I said, well, this is definitely a good idea then, because if you get someone that's proceedable, they're going to be all over you for dates and moving in. So agree something with someone that can't, and you've got time, and you can then go to people and say, I have got a provisional sale agreed on my house. Stories are marketing it. You can speak to Ian about how that's going. That's way better than having no buyer at all, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And equally as well, though, when you are a seller, and like you've just mentioned there, you've not had much interest for a period of time, and then all of a sudden someone comes along and we're saying, right, well, what I think you should do is give them a 7-week grace period, basically the 49 days that Rightmove allows from the point of instruction. Because what that does is it gives us time to try and sell the house for this client. You're not getting a load of interest anyway. They feel like they've got something because the house that they now want is off the market, so to speak, for this period of time. They'll be more sensible with the pricing because they've got this and they've got this period of time to sell it. So they're more likely to be sensible with the pricing. We can try and get that sold in that time frame. And guess what, Mr. Seller? If we don't, then after 49 days, your house goes back on as a brand new listing, and it behaves completely different than if it was stale. It'll look like brand new. It'll be seen by more buyers. It'll be going into all the new feeds that they have, and the new people usually use the filters to set them up. It's once again, it's just an educational process rather than just sitting and waiting. You're taking action. You're being proactive for your seller and for the buyer.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
So we're going to talk about this week. We've booked a media day in because obviously TCA is growing and expanding, and there's a value add for our members. We're starting to film our video library catalogue with various different bits of content in terms of how-tos, how we do certain things, to really kind of, I guess, supercharge people moving forwards. They can refer back to whenever they need to. Also, they can show their team as well. Things like Dave's data loft valuation, for example. That is absolute gold. I know that's been an absolute game changer for me and Ian in terms of how to use the data, how to articulate the data, and how to present the data to people. And just, I mean, we've seen it with members. I'm not going to call anyone out specifically, but there was one member that actually did us a testimonial video off her own back that said what a game changer that was since they joined. The confidence it's given them to go to a house at 2 million and be able to present the facts and show, look, this is what it is, and this is why I'm saying what I'm saying, and this is the data. It's just been a complete game changer for, I think, a lot of people. So I think what we're going to do is just unpack what that looks like, but also we recorded the mini-series, lads, nearly 2 years ago now. And things have, we never sit still. We're always adding and trying new things, and it's iteratively got better as we've gone. Dave just put a duvet on his face. So things have iteratively got better as time's gone on, and I just thought we would go through that. So Dave, the data loft val, without giving the game away, how is that? Has anything changed since you first sort of introduced it? Because when we did the mini series, I was just going through now in terms of what it was like in order. I think the first one was a lead generation, so we're probably jumping ahead a little bit. Maybe we should actually let's start from lead generation actually, rather than going into that first. So lead generation was the first
lots,
part.
Isn't the JK? Sorry, there's lots really. I mean, so just to go back a few steps. I mean, obviously the reason we're going to cover this a little bit is for like you've said, we're updating a lot of things, and there's more exciting stuff to come for our members. So really, we just thought, you know what, let's just discuss a few of these bits. There'll be a lot of this stuff that we won't discuss because it's for members only, but making a lot of these videos and how-to-dos and what you can do in these situations and what we do for lead generation and what we do to convert and what we do to our existing clients, all that sort of stuff's going to be in there. But like you said, it's been a couple of years since we did the mini-series, which is but basically it's the foundations, isn't it? That you lay.
Blueprint, isn't it, pretty much?
Yes, the blueprint, that's right. That's a better way of putting it.
We've kind of given that away for free, but we sell the implementation.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I think that's fair. And really, the whole part of it is, right from the start, is the how do you look part of it, isn't it? We briefly touched on it last week, I think, and all the way through to signing on the dotted line and handing over the keys. There's a whole process there, and it's really important that every part of that process is absolutely nailed, so that people from the outside looking in can see you doing that consistently well, because it makes them want to do business with you, and it'll make them want to do business with you without necessarily speaking to other people. That's the other thing.
Going to drilling down into how do you look. Like, since we actually recorded that, I mean, we actually put the start from scratch out, which was how do you look. That was released on the 1st of February 2024. So almost 2 years now. And there's a few things that have changed. I mean, no, for you, We Locate underwent a rebrand for a start.
Yeah, do you know what, right? So, again, if you're new to listening to the pod, you can go back and listen to the origins and stuff like that from our journeys. But, very, very quick. My journey was from low fixed fee to high end.
All of us were.
Yeah, all of us were. But, I mean, I had a brand that I quite liked, but what I had to accept quite early on, or before I even started looking at high-end stuff, was that brand was just not right to go into higher-end homes. It just wasn't. And the reason for that is that the homes that I was selling at the time just weren't representative of what I wanted to have. So if I wanted to go and get a £1 million plus £1.5 million 6-bed, 5,000 square foot detached home with 2 acres, well, the minute they land on my website, what they will see is a load of 2-bed terraces, 3-bed semis, and the odd 4-bed detached executive home ranging from 150,000 up to maybe $500,000. That's what we used to sell. We were and are still really good at it, but that's what we sold. And I just think that your mindset when you are in that position, if you are the homeowner of a £1.5 million house and you land on a website that consistently sells those types of homes, you're just not going to pick up the phone. And I know from experience, because I've tried it. So we did try quite a few years ago to send out targeted mail and things like that to higher value homes as We Locate, without all branding, and got a really poor response, to be honest with you. So it kind of took the wind out of my sails personally a little bit. I just thought, am I flogging a dead horse here? What do I need to do? So I went and got educated about how best to do this. I went and looked at people around the country who were doing this better than I were and consistently getting better homes. What were they doing to do this? And the thing, having done a lot of research, that was quite clear is that you have to look like what you want to attract. It's as simple as that. So the honest conversation I had with myself was, that brand is not good enough. It doesn't look right. And I need to start either change it completely or start a new one. And I chose the latter, which was to start a brand new brand and just go at it from day one. What I can say, lads, is that in the sort of 3 or 4 years, that has comfortably overtaken the other brand, both in units and pound notes. It's comfortably ahead, and we did it quickly, really. Obviously, it slight contradiction. It takes time and patience, but in the grand scheme of things, it's been done quickly.
Isn't 3 months, is it? Quickly is a couple of years.
It is.
People overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what can happen in 5, don't they?
Yeah, and I said something to Ian, and I've since said it to you, about my journey, And I've done this now on my own I've done business on my own for 10 years. I've been in the industry for almost 20. But with WeLocate, I said that WeLocate was the education and that Burton James was my graduation. So I've made a lot of mistakes with WeLocate, done well with WeLocate as well. But Burton James, from day one, has been almost textbook. And it's because we implemented everything that I'd learned in my previous journey and accepted that change was needed. And that was the biggest thing, JK, Ian, accepting that it wasn't right and that something needed. If I was going to succeed in this space, it wasn't right. So I had to do something about it. And we did. And that's where we're at now. So we had a look at the website. We looked at the branding. We looked at the type of client we wanted to attract. And it took me a while. As you know, lads, it's a bit of a running joke, really. You two are just very implementation is done within days. You get on with it and do it. I'm a bit more sort of a thinker. I'll try to have a look at it. So it took me a while. And to be honest, I could have probably made more money had I been quicker to market in a way, because I missed the COVID boom with Burton James, really, that 2020, late 2021 market. Because I was still setting it all up properly. But, I think
you underestimate yourself, Dave. I think you underestimate yourself. So I know we might be quicker initially on the draw on certain things, and maybe you could have started Burton James quicker. But the speed at which you've done Burton James, there was no company there. Was there 2 years ago?
No, three. Three.
All right, 3. Staggering. To see what you're selling now and the fees you're getting. So you do underestimate yourself. And I think you're a shining example to a lot of agents around the country who might currently or are currently selling mid-lower, that could easily do what you've done. There is no excuse. You don't have to use the same brand like JK's done, which is maybe even more difficult. You can just tap a new one and do what you've done.
Yeah,
don't underestimate yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. But it is a lesson to me, and one that I feel I can confidently now pass on. And if anybody challenges me on it, I'll say, no, you're wrong, because it's done. I've done it.
But you've got to be consistent. You can't play at it. You've got to literally you've got to do the work to get the results. You can't go to you can't buy, it's like buying a gym membership and not using any of the weight machines.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, as well, you've got you can't pretend that it's just going to come and you can't invest in it and etc. There's a level of investment needed. Now, one thing that probably I was a little bit more fortunate with, and I say it's fortunate. I had to work bloody hard with WeLocate, with some horrendous times in the first 3 years where I hemorrhaged money to get it back on track and making money. But I suppose I had that sort of comfort blanket, if you like. We had WeLocate trading and stuff. And it allowed me to finance Burton James and have a bit of patience with it. I'm not going to pretend that you don't need some finance. You do. You've got to back yourself. But when did any business get set up and just immediately succeed and not need any finance or risk? So I think that first 12 months you need a lot of good preparation and good faith. But if you know you're good enough and you can convert in the living room, and that's one of the biggest things, lads, as well. I think every value will back themselves against the next value because that's their nature. Everybody thinks that they're the best and that it can win and they salesy. But anybody can win at 1%, 0.5%. This is about building something really exciting and prestige that looks the part. And then once you get to a position where you've got the few listings that you've consistently presented, then you've got to get yourself into a position where you can consistently convert at 2%. And that's the biggest challenge, because if you do this right, the rewards are phenomenal. And I've said it for the last few weeks. Once you get to this position now that we're in, where we're in a really, look, I was about to say a poor market. We know that there are buyers out there. We know the sellers are out there. We know it's got to be priced right, etc. But in the quieter times, there is less pressure. If you planted the seeds early enough and you've done everything consistently well, there is less pressure. because you get to a stage where you maybe don't have to be selling as many because you are talking good quality over quantity.
If your average fee is 12 grand or 15 grand and you sell 3 at 15 grand, that's 45 grand.
Yeah.
I know it sounds obvious to say, but you think back 10 years ago, we were charging 1,800 quid, 2 grand, per house.
Yeah.
And then, if you look at your stats, we are 80 odd % of what we list exchanges, which is, way, even Ian White said on the podcast that I was on before, like he sees a lot of agents and that's an elite stat. Most people are aiming to get to 60, 70%. The national average is around 50%. So if you're agreeing sales at the mid to lower end and charging 1% or less, because there is a lot of people out there doing less than 1%, and average fee is probably 3 grand. By default, going by the average house price in the country, average fee is 3 grand, and 50% of those complete. Then you're looking at 1,500 quid.
Well, JK, you're absolutely right, and you asked me at the start what has changed since we first recorded that podcast, so 2 years ago almost. The principles haven't, to be honest. If you listen to that podcast now, everything that we say on that is exactly the same. But obviously, with 2 years on, probably done another 300 or 400 valuations since then, and all it has done is reaffirm that this shit works. If you get this bit right, what I would say is you can't skip a step.
No.
So if you have got a brand right now where and you can be absolutely honest with yourself, and if you want to jump on a Zoom call with the three of us, we will be honest with you. And you've got 3-bed semis, 2-bed terraces. Some of them have got bins on the front drive, and there's no twilights, and you've taken the photos yourself, and the odd one doesn't have an EPC or a floor plan, and you don't do video. I'm telling you now, you're not succeeding in the mid to high end market. It's just not going to happen. And it depends what your name is and all that sort of stuff. It's so important that you get this bit right. And what that did for me, JK, is obviously we've got the blueprint. We do it, and I've done it consistently and backed myself and financed it and done it right. But it also made me reassess my other brand, because I thought, hang on a minute, the average house price in the Northwest is something like 250 grand. The average fee will therefore be around 2,400, 2,500 pounds. You need really good volume even on that to make good money, and it's probably more challenging at the bottom end of the market to get higher value fees, like at the very bottom end of the market, because there'll always be someone who goes in and says we'll do it for £1,000 or £1,500, and a lot of the bottom end of the market have that mindset where, I just want to pay for the cheapest and get that.
Yeah.
But my thought process on what that was the same. I don't want them. I do not want them. So let's change the brand on that. So we rebranded that as well to become and look a little bit more like a prestige mid-range brand, if you like, that attracts more like the nice 3-bed semis, 4-bed detached. And the average house price value on that has now increased. So, I think our highest value listing on that is something like 800,000. We've got some lower value stock as well, but all on really great fees. And and it's all relative. Obviously, we're not charging 10 grand on a £250,000 house, but we're charging 4.5 grand, 5 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And again, those are much easier. I would much rather walk away from it's not me doing it, running that now, but I would much rather us walk away from a £2,500 fee on that brand, because it's, if you think, you've done a bit of analysis. We'll not go into that today, JK. It's for another pod, but you've done a bit of analysis on what it actually costs you to acquire and sell a house.
Mm.
I don't think a lot of people realise they're losing money on those. It's just the fact that they've got mass volume that makes the balance sheet look a lot better. But if that was, you could probably always ask yourself, if that was your only listing, would you actually do the work for it? Would you? Fuck.
100%.
It's just not worth it. Excuse my French. But I'm really passionate about it now. And I'm not interested in doing all that bloody work and getting paid a pittance for it.
No.
And that's where the mid to high end market is so much stronger. And, even the team as well, they really appreciate it. They put so much work in, so much effort and time. And I would say it's probably harder than ever if you're a sales progressor, front-end sales negotiator, whatever it is. It's probably harder than ever. You've got so many challenges with different clients. They don't want that either. They don't want to see all that work and then the company only get X amount of pounds for it that's really low on an average fee. They want to feel it and know that we're doing well. So got off a bit of a tangent there, but the how you
just
look
going on that fees, Dave, quickly though. What there is a stat, isn't there? That the fee split. So the majority of the fees in the industry are earned above the average.
That's
the
right.
Transaction volumes are. It's like I think it's like something like, I'll probably completely misquote it here, but 10% of the property transactions in this sort of mid to higher end are equivalent to the 90% in the average to lower end.
Yeah, Dave Lindley's got that stat. I know he preached it once. I saw it on his Insta. So David, again, if you're listening, drop us that stat if you don't mind, because I think it's a beauty. It just gives you. It really gives you a good.
It just focuses the mind. Do you want to be in the 10%? You know, earning living, because you've got to. There's very few people that do volume really well. You know, shout out obviously Michelle Gallagher, because she's a machine. She's one of the very few that works it. I mean, you know, that I've never seen her business like inside, but I imagine it's very much like a military operation there. You know, everything is like process driven. Everything is there. You know, and it's a really well-oiled machine. But for me, I don't have the. I kind of fell out of love with the estate agency a little while back when I was selling the lower end, because you know you do all this work for 6 months just to get paid 1,800 quid. You know, and so you know, now in today's market, you know that's what, 2.5 grand. You know, everything's gone up. Aggregate inflation's up 33% over the last 5 years. So, do you really want to be earning, or do you want to be closing down because you know the volume isn't there anymore and people aren't buying houses? It's a really, I suppose you've got to have a conversation with yourself, because you know we've all come from lower end to now mid to upper end, and everything is just a lot nicer. Generally, the people you deal with are nicer. You know, you sell the houses that, you know, obviously exceptions to the rule, but the houses are kind of aspirational homes. Agents that are selling lower end homes look up to you because you know they think, well, you must be special because you're selling upper end homes. But the people you meet tend to be like you. So or they're either like you now or they're you in the future. So you know they've had a business, they've done the hard yards, they understand what it takes to be successful, and now they're selling and downsizing. Or they could be, you know, 40-odd-year-old entrepreneur, like in the thick of it, gets your market updates, appreciates you know what you're doing, appreciates the level of detail and quality you do with your marketing. They naturally resonate with you, and some, you know, conversations you have are great. You know, Ian, the Bond villain house, for example, you know, they've got a couple of nice cars that they've got. You know, it's aspirational to work in that space because you're dealing with, you know, different people, and that is one thing that we talk about on the mini series, and one of the topics we'll probably cover in the video library is how to deal, because you get used to dealing with everyone in the lower end of the market. They're generally first-time buyers, first-time sellers, or second-time sellers. Very rarely are they people downsizing, but sometimes they are if they're smaller bungalows. But you generally kind of come across people and they're quite easy to deal with. It's very transactional. If the fee's right, they'll do it. And it's, you know, whether they like you or Joe Blogs more, whoever they come to see. But when it comes to the upper end of the market, there's a very, you know, sometimes there can be, excuse my French, a bit of a dick swinging competition in the beginning, you know, in terms of the seller's power play, certain people that you meet. And, you know, are you the right person to sell their house? Have you got the credential? That's what I mean. Probably I use that in the wrong context there, but are you the right person to sell their house? And you've really, you know, if you turn up in a Nissan Micra to value a £3.5 million house, like you've already lost it on the drive because they're not going to take you seriously. And people can say what they like, but the reality is that's the truth. You've got to be turning up in a half decent car, premium car, you know, whether that doesn't have to be the most expensive car, but goes back to what you just said, you know, we talked about, Dave. How do you look? You know, you've got to look the part, whether that's a Defender or whether it's, even an Audi, a BMW doesn't have to be a 100 grand car. Even if it's a 30 grand car, half decent premium German or whatever, you're automatically judged on how you look.
I think it was backtracking there to try and make your car sound good, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to get rid of my pistol.
Everything you said there is correct. The other thing I would add is that you've got to be good enough.
Yeah.
It's all very well looking the part and your company looking the part and having everything in place and being consistent, but you've got to be good enough at going and sitting and being confident with that seller of their £1.5 million house. You've got to be, they've got to receive you correctly. And if you are inexperienced or you're just not that good at speaking to people at that level, then it might not work. You've got to be the right kind of person to be able to go and achieve it.
Yes.
And consistency. I think I've said that before, but the consistency is unbelievable. The lack of consistency is unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And
there are a lot of people, though, mate. You said you've got to be the right sort of person, and I consider myself the right sort of person. But before I was in the higher end, it was a confidence thing for me. I thought, why would somebody in a £4 or £5 million house want somebody who grew up in a council estate to sell their house?
Yeah.
That in my mind, but that's your own limited beliefs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. Of course. Yeah, it's definitely a confidence thing. Yeah, no question.
Mindset.
I think that's partly what I mean. Really. Yeah, you've got to be able to deliver, haven't you, on the valuation? You've got to get them to buy into you and believe in you, and obviously that starts with believing in yourself. And so much comes from believing in yourself, doesn't it? Getting the right fee. Fee is a mindset thing, isn't it? We all know. We all. If you go back 7 years, the three of us wouldn't believe you're able to charge the fees we charge now. But it's because we have self-belief and mindset that we're good enough.
Well, I can remember when you said to me a few years back when we were charging 1.5%, and I was like, "Yeah, we're going to move up to 2%. I'm going to move up to 2%." And he said it's to Dave the other day as well. Just do it. Just do it. Well, I'm in January. I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. No, just do it. And I did. I went out. You just go out and what was getting 1.5%. 5, 6, 7 years ago, which when everyone else is, everyone's still charging 1% or less, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. And what it does make a difference to is your bottom line. But B, when you are doubly as expensive as somebody else, people look at you, scrutinize it even more, and think, well, there must be a reason that it's more expensive. What the John Lewis strapline, reassuringly expensive.
Yes.
So you just have to get on with it. So going back to the video, so we've covered that part there.
Can I say something quickly? Sorry.
No.
Just on this little bit. I remember being in a room when researching all of this, and there were a lot of people in that room, and we were talking. There was a question asked about what your average fee is, both potentially as a percentage and pound notes. And it was one way you didn't have to answer if you didn't feel comfortable answering it. But they went around the room and people started to give the average fee. And at the time, I only had one brand, and I think our average fee was something like £3,500. And let me tell you, when we went around the room, I was one of the better ones. And as we were going around the room, I was like, wow. And then another question was asked about how much money are you paying yourselves out of the business at the moment? And a lot of people weren't paying themselves at all and had been doing it for a long time. Yeah, we're doing it for a long time. And then there were about 3 or 4 agents in the room whose average fee was something like between 15 and 20. And I was like, what? My jaw dropped as if to say, how is that even possible? And that was the start of my journey on, right, I can do this, but it's going to start with how the hell I look. And I need to start out my business because my business currently will not attract that level of business. So that is why I went back to the drawing board. So going right back to the start of the question, what has changed, JK? I think the only thing for me that has changed is that I've got more clarity than I've ever had before. There is a blueprint to this. There is. Anyone can do it if they've got the right mindset. and they just follow the main principles. But it all starts with a bit of honesty and looking in the mirror.
Well, I mean, the tumbleweed that blew across the screen then when you said that, I think says it all, Dave. I think says
Thank
it
you.
all.
Yeah.
Looking in the mirror, how do you look? That's where you need to start.
It is.
You're serious about achieving it.
Yeah. And I'm like I said, the point that JK was making, that we're going to record a lot of this. We've done it all before, on a bit more of an amateur level, shall we say, and the members benefit from that. But we have some proper media days booked out where we're going to properly put so much great content together for our existing members. But yeah,
we're going to see in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to do it, lads, because I just think that they will massively benefit from it. But anybody new coming into it who wants to implement this and install this blueprint, it'll just be there for you. And I can't stress enough. I'll argue to the cows come home. It's if you implement it and you keep the strategy, you're consistent and patient, you'll win. But you've got to start today.
For anyone listening down south, that's cows, not coos.
The cows.
Come on.
What do you say?
Cow.
Right, so I'll argue.
Even I say cow.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Cow.
Now, David's been very particular.
The cows, come on. Cows. The cows, come
power,
on.
Dave.
Cows. No. Cows.
Cows.
Yeah.
Cows.
Well done.
Cows.
Right, let's wrap it up.
Buzz. How'd you say buzzes? Buzz.
Or
Bus.
buzzers? Or buses?
Buzz. Somebody laughed at me the other day. I was filming a video and I said it's really close to the buzz route, and he stopped. He said, "Whoa, start again." You said buzz. I went, right. That's what it is. Buzz. He said, "No, it's bus." I had to re-record it and say, "There's a bus stop over there." Honestly,
down.
You guys. It's just my accent, lads. Anyway, that would be a good place to call it. My terrible accent. Everybody, thank you for listening. We're going to continue this theme, I think, for the next few weeks, and we'll have some great guests. Mastermind in December, as I've said, I think it's the best one of the year. And if you are thinking of jumping on this journey to success in the mid to high end market, there is no better time.
Do it. No.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Have a great week.